Hello and welcome to Pod People, the internet's newest spooky movie podcast. I'm your host, Matisse Van Rossum, and I am joined by Eugene Lundeen.
Ooh, so glad to be here.
I wish I could say the feeling was mutual. And also, Ben Sheets.
Am I here?
Well, I don't see you.
Is anyone here when you're online?
Only on GeoCities.
So this week, we're talking about the internet.
Spooky cyberwebs.
Don't click that link. Don't click it. There might be a ghost behind there.
It's all the wires. How are you supposed to flush the ghosts out when there are so many wires?
Didn't you hear? The internet is a series of tubes.
Well,
Oh my God.
We all know that. The internet's like one big water slide.
Yeah.
That's why it's so easy to get sucked into the dark web.
That's a shame you made that reference, because that reference is almost as old as some of the movies that we've checked out on this list. So before Facebook was even a thing, it was just something a serial killer had, pictures of his victims.
We should probably...
Wait, are you telling me that Facebook hasn't always existed?
Well, hey, I gotta give you a history lesson, teach you about Facebook's creepy uncle, MySpace.
What horror movie is this
the
from?
difference between Tom and Mark Zuckerberg is Tom wants to be friends with everyone, and Mark Zuckerberg is too scared to be friends with everyone. Yet he still wants to be fucking president. Ugh, Mark Zuckerberg running for president is true American hell.
Hey, who's to say that he couldn't do a good job? I mean, wouldn't we all? Because then we could probably
fucking
vote.
everyone that uses Facebook.
We could vote in elections through Facebook. Wouldn't that be great? Then everyone would do it.
He's already selling all of our information to the highest bidders anyway.
Did you guys see that video of him like VRing into Puerto Rico?
Oh man,
he's like doing this like 360 VR thing.
He's
and
like
he like goes to tour like the wreck of Puerto Rico.
Oh Jesus Christ!
He's like Donald Trump's tech savvy nephew.
No, that's Barron Trump.
He's good at cyber, you guys.
Elite hacker Barron Trump.
Can you just imagine being in Puerto Rico? Your whole town has been devastated. There's no electricity, no water, nothing. And then a little Segway with an iPad attached to it runs over to you and it's like, hey, I wish I could be handing you this loaf of bread, but man, do you look sad.
The fucking video of Mark Zuckerberg going to Puerto Rico, quote unquote, going to Puerto Rico is gold, though.
I hear that you could buy the Puerto Rico experience and then anyone with a VR headset can experience the devastated.
For how many dollars, Eugene? Tell us.
For at least $100. Because
wow, for only $100, I
Also,
can experience the devastation of Puerto Rico?
It also
That's
comes
right.
free with every Galaxy S8.
Tell me more.
Oh, God. Well, off of that tangent, we should probably just jump into the news, I guess.
Right, enough
We're
about
already
Facebook.
topical enough here.
Tell me about the news, Ben.
Let's talk about this think piece that came out in the LA Times.
Oh yes, let's think on this piece.
It's called "Has Horror Become the Movie Genre of the Trump Era?"
Oh boy, and is it ever a bad article?
So basically, it's all about, like, in the Trump era, is horror as a genre gaining cultural relevance? And they look at, like, mainly its success. Like we talked about last episode, it being the highest grossing R-rated horror movie of all time. And like how Stephen King referenced Trump as Pennywise the president because Trump's a fucking brainworm clown.
Well, they both have big foreheads and fake orange hair.
And there's all these children going after.
Right, as
Going
they put it,
after
a bunch of a delightful gang of minorities that have to try and overcome this force that used to be funny but now has the worst intentions out for these kids.
Yeah.
Even though this story was written in 1985.
Which the article references, and then they say it doesn't matter at all because, hey, if we can put our own meanings into it and project ourselves onto this movie that has nothing to do with that, I mean, that's our right as viewers, isn't it? To misinterpret?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can interpret a movie however you want. My problem with this article is it's talking about horror being the genre of politics, like that's a new thing, when horror has been the genre of politics for basically as long as it's been a thing.
Yeah.
Horror is not the movie genre of the Trump era any more than it's the movie genre of the Reagan era or the Nixon era.
Yeah. Well, you know, I do think it has an interesting context in the Trump era. I know they reference Get Out too, and that being very race-oriented, and how that kind of reflects a lot of cultural elements of 2017.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's spot on. Like,
I agree with that, but I think that it still has a message outside of just the political environment, that it's going for something deeper, I think, about human interactions and all that
yeah,
sorts.
I would agree. I think a lot of times nowadays, neoliberals want to connect everything to Trump.
Right,
to be
'cause
like hashtag resistance.
If The Purge came out this year, everyone would be going crazy about that. Everyone would be calling it, this is what happens in Trump's America or something of that sort. But
Right, but my point is they were doing the same thing with Bush.
Well, that's kind of the interesting thing. I feel like movies have kind of reflected political times.
Always, yeah, that's
Always.
what I'm saying.
But like, especially in trends, because you see after like 9/11, this huge pop in torture porn and stuff,
Oh, yeah.
like justifying how fucking awful we treated
Well, yeah, like,
Abu Ghraib and waterboarding and all that shit.
The whole Guantanamo controversy and everything. Yeah, well, obviously, horror movies are about what people are afraid of at any given time, and people are always freaked out by politics, no matter what side of the spectrum they're on. Somebody's always going to be freaked out about what's happening politically, and that shows itself in the horror movies of those decades.
Yeah.
I think some of the greatest horror movies that have come out recently, they don't focus on politics. They try and focus on something smaller. I mean, you see it with like The Babadook, it's about grief, or It Follows, all about sexual abuse. And I think that because they tried to narrow their intentions to something like that, and even with Get Out, to not try and make a grander political statement, that it succeeds on that level. And I mean, I didn't find it particularly scary, so I think that's...
Or particularly political, honestly.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
What do you think the reflection of our times is going to be in horror? Like, if you looked back 20 years from now, is it going to be like late stage capitalism tinged horror, or is it going to be race related? What do you guys think?
I think, well, there's definitely going to be an aspect of race relations, especially with a movie like Get Out. And I think that we're going to start seeing more movies like Get Out, and I think that's great.
Yeah, I think it's good.
I also think there's going to be, it's really just going to be like the society of fear itself, especially how Trump is using like fear to get everybody on his side, you know? That's really what this current season of American Horror Story has been about in a lot of ways. I know I said that it was bad on the last episode, but in the last couple of weeks, it started winning me over, I must say.
Well, and that's something that you can find even in films from the 70s and 80s, that cults, that these fanatics that detach from society, that's something that has always been a fear, I guess, in a lot of people. What happens when you run into these radicals that have amassed power, you find out that it's just much bigger than you would ever imagine.
Well, it's all about reactionaries.
Yeah.
Something happens, some demagogue will get out there, whip everybody into a fury, and before you know it, we've got that cultish mob mentality, you know? I think that's going to be, to answer your question, Ben, really what's indicative of horror of this generation 20 years from now.
Well, it's really interesting looking at like when conspiracy cult movies really popped off. It was like during the Nixon era and kind of during the Reagan era, which totally makes sense. I mean,
Which was really the first time the average American citizen didn't feel like they could trust the government. You know, up until that point, everyone's like, oh, the government's looking out for your best interests. They're taking care of you. And it was the Nixon era and Vietnam.
I think also
The Cold
just
War.
the whole free love era as well, when people felt like they could just drop out of normal society, live on communes. And then you see that with the Manson family, a lot of people knew of them, that they were a traveling group, and that because of their murders, I think everyone just felt this fear that these people that did not trust modern society at that time were dangerous to modern society because they had no connections to it, no commitment to trying to keep the status quo.
well, I do think the article was kind of shitty. I do think that horror is going to get a little more popular under the Trump era.
Well, I
because
think
people need catharsis under uncertain times.
agree.
So that totally makes sense to me. I don't really like how the article was going about it, but I think they had a point in a way.
I hope it means that we'll see more serious horror films and that we'll do away with some of the franchising that Hollywood's been promoting the last, I don't know, decade or so. Like, let's stop with all these Insidious sequels, the fucking Conjuring sequels. Like, let's...
Honestly, in a way, I see the corporatization and franchising as kind of a reflection of the Obama era. Like a lot of corporatization, superheroes where there's a clear good and evil.
Yeah.
I mean, did you hear about that story where Marvel was going to work with Northrop Grumman, the defense contractors, to have a tie-in, like, comic book series with...
So Marvel's gonna start doing our propaganda now, is what
Well,
you're
I mean,
saying.
they already are. They're just, like, taking away any veneer of of not being propaganda. I mean, fucking look at Iron Man. He's a billionaire who's saving us all.
Well,
Like,
yeah, he's an arms dealer, or he was before he became Iron
yeah,
Man.
because billionaire arms dealers aren't awful people in real life.
Well, if anybody's gonna become Iron Man, it's a billionaire.
It might as well be a likable dude like Robert Downey Jr., who totally wasn't an alcoholic, terrible person for like a decade of his life.
Well, see, that's why Iron Man isn't the superhero that we deserve or need. It's Batman.
True, the other billionaire
well, yeah,
whose
exactly.
only superpower is being rich as fuck.
Well,
Yeah.
what does Wayne Enterprises do? What's his job? I mean, what does he control? I don't know.
Nobody knows.
I don't know if that's ever really explored, at least in the Christopher Nolan movies.
He runs Comet Ping Pong.
Well, in Batman Begins, there was some shit about his Bruce Wayne's dad building the trains in the.
Oh,
in the
God.
Gotham.
So he's a railroad magnate?
Yeah, I guess
he's a railway man.
Let's forget about all the terrible things the railroad industry did. Well, I think we should move on from this, get a little less political.
Yeah, this is not a.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about. I think. for the
Welcome
most
to our
part-
politics podcast. We'll link this article in the show notes, so anybody who wants to check it out can. Before we move on, though, I do want to point out maybe the best reach in the article where they compare the alien monster in Life, which came out this year, to ISIS. I think that's a pretty wide reach, and it's stuff like that indicates that this article is missing the point in a lot of ways. But check it out for yourself.
Before we move on from news, should we talk about the elephant in the room with Mr. Harvey Weinstein? It's kind of an uncomfortable topic.
Well,
the Academy
he's-
Award-winning elephant in the room.
Yeah, ugh.
Big surprise. One of the richest men in Hollywood is a total fucking scumbag.
Right? Like, this shouldn't surprise anyone. Like, fat, bloated, coked out, old Hollywood executives are creepy. Like, obviously they're doing shit like this. I mean, it shouldn't like normalize what he's doing or make it okay. Obviously, it's awful, but we shouldn't be surprised by this. I'm sure the majority of fucking
No, and that's the problem.
caviar eating Hollywood executives fucking do this.
Well, that's the issue, is that, like, there's definitely so many other people in Hollywood doing this, and this whole Weinstein thing is not going to do anything if Hollywood doesn't work to get the rest of the sexual predators out.
Right,
So,
I think the biggest thing is that if you're a scumbag who gains power, you're going to keep doing these scumbag things with impunity. And if there's anything that can come out of this Harvey Weinstein thing that's good, is hopefully this shows a lot of other elite out there, not just in Hollywood, and anyone in that position to abuse power, just
Hopefully-
that they can't get away with it.
hopefully
for
if
too
it does
long.
if it does anything, it will make people more willing to speak out against
Yeah.
these kinds of things, because
yeah.
that's what it's going to take, because obviously these people get to do what they do for years with impunity because nobody wants to stand up to them because they're afraid. So
Hopefully it means people will listen when people
Yes.
speak out
Oh my
too.
God.
You know? As
It's so-
crazy as Corey Feldman is, like he's been fucking speaking out for decades about how he was molested as a
right.
child
Well,
actor.
I think it's because Corey Feldman is crazy that nobody's been listening to him. But yeah, like for real, if somebody says they've been sexually abused, why is it everybody's first instinct to try to disprove that?
My favorite article about the Harvey Weinstein stuff was there was an article about Woody Allen being like, I don't want this to turn into a witch hunt. And it's like, oh yeah, I know why you don't want this to turn into a witch hunt.
You guys, I feel bad for Harvey Weinstein. Let's not turn this into a witch hunt. God forbid. I would really hate for somebody to notice that I've been molesting my daughter for all these years.
Right, please, let's keep it to Harvey Weinstein. Me, Roman Polanski, and Bill Cosby are all just disgusted by
This
what
is
he did.
this is a witch hunt.
Right? That's the thing about the Academy taking Harvey Weinstein out of their committee or whatever. Roman Polanski, Bill Cosby, and Mel Gibson are still a part of it. They haven't been blacklisted yet.
Yeah, what's the
Like-
deal with that?
Hollywood is garbage.
Hollywood is fucking garbage. I think we can all agree with that.
Well,
All right.
we should move on.
Yes.
Let's get into
So Donald
reviews.
Trump called Who's the president of the Virgin Islands, Donald Trump? You tell me that. Okay, nope, let's keep on going. Let's go on to the movies. Internet horror. We're here to talk about ghosts in the machines, about spirits haunting your smartphones. So, the first movie on our list will be starting off with you, Matisse. So why don't you take it away?
All right, so the first movie we're going to be talking about this week is the new film Friend Request.
New-ish?
New-ish.
Yeah.
New U.S. release.
New U.S.
Yes.
release, yeah. It was released in 2016 internationally.
It's a German film.
Yes, a German film directed by Simon Verhoeven, no relation to Paul Verhoeven. And I believe the entire thing was filmed in South Africa, but using all American actors, so it's weird.
Would this be accidental nepotism? Like people think like he's related to Paul Verhoeven and give him
Oh,
a deal?
definitely. Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's go see this. It's gonna be like RoboCop 2, but on Facebook. A basic summary of this film is this young, popular college girl. She's got like 900 Facebook friends or something like that. She takes pity on like the weird goth girl and decides to be her only friend on Facebook. The outcast chick then becomes extremely clingy and weird, and due to peer pressure from some of her friends, our protagonist unfriends her, which then causes her to kill herself and place a black magic curse on our heroine, which causes her to lose a bunch of friends on Facebook.
And the curse is spread through black mirrors.
Yeah. We'll get into that.
Yeah,
later.
okay. So let's just kind of go through it. Let's start off with that intro. Oh my god.
I think this movie was basically just one big ad for Facebook.
Yeah, it's like how Suicide Squad was cut by a trailer company. This feels like it was done by an advertising company. The opening of this film is just so sleek and feels just like a Facebook ad. You're left wondering if you're watching this on basic cable and the commercials came on.
Yeah, we get this really lengthy opening montage that you would expect that they'd put the opening credits over.
No credits,
but
though.
there's no credits. No, it's basically just to show how popular this girl is on Facebook. I don't even remember this character's name. Do you guys remember?
I want to.
Yeah, basically. To IMDb we go.
True.
Laura. Okay,
I thought it was Laura. I thought that was the name of the creepy girl, though. What was?
Oh, no, that's an Unfriended. Her name's Laura.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, this whole opening montage is basically just to show how popular Laura is on Facebook. It's just a montage of her liking people's statuses and posting pictures and videos, and look at how popular and great her life is. She has so many friends.
Well, okay, before that, too, it starts with, like, this professor being like, someone in your class killed herself. Don't spread it on our university website.
She filmed it. Don't share the suicide video, you guys.
Yeah, don't share it on our university website.
Right, when you check out the link, please don't press the share button.
But the girl has like 800 friends, and it's a big deal or something.
I don't have anywhere near 800 Facebook
Oh, me neither, but
friends,
I'm not
you guys.
popular, so it's...
Whoever directed this thinks millennials like live on Facebook.
That's what I got from this movie, too. Like, this movie was definitely made by somebody who doesn't use social media and who just thinks this is how people use social media. It's very patronizing towards young people. I will definitely say that. Yeah, it makes the assumption that all millennials are totally consumed by Facebook and nothing else.
Well, we cut from this long intro where the opening credits should be to this like cat video, and it goes on for like a minute, and at the end of it there's like a jump scare in the cat video.
And it happens so early in the film, you know you're in for a bad time. It's like if a bolt fell off of a roller coaster you're about to go on. It's not gonna go well.
Yeah,
I can
it's
laugh
like-
my ass off.
It's like when they were writing this movie, they sat down and they were like, okay guys, what are some main bullet points about the internet? Facebook? Okay, yeah, check. Cat videos? Double check. Cat video jump scares? Triple check.
anonymous hacker dude.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure like there hasn't been that craze of like jump scare YouTube videos since like 2003.
R.I.P. those years. Good God.
Yeah, well, fucking good riddance.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, so all these people are in college, even though they look like they're all in their 30s.
Yeah, there was one chick, I kept thinking she was the mom of the main character.
Was it her blonde friend?
Yeah, because she's got wrinkles, like crow's feet and shit, and it's like, sure, you know, I'm not trying to like call her old or anything, but she can't play a college student well at all.
None of these people looked like they were in college. Like that's the main thing. They all looked like they were in their early to mid 30s.
But anyways, this girl, Marina, like messages the popular girl asking to be friends with her before she friend requests her.
Yeah, who does that?
Yeah.
Just send a fucking friend request.
Yeah.
Don't be like, "Hey, is it cool if I send you a friend request?"
Yeah, and then once she accepts the friend request, she like looks at her wall of creepy aesthetic gifs or whatever.
Yeah,
and they're all just like she's posting them to herself since she has no
she has
friends.
no friends. She's just sharing all of this like super emo aesthetic deviant art bullshit that as they scroll through gets progressively like creepier and creepier and edgier.
She seems like she would visit Hot Topic a lot.
Oh yeah, this is such a fucking garbage display of what popularity is, and that the unpopular girl must be goth. There must be something wrong with her. She has emotional disorders. That's why she doesn't have friends. She posts all this edgy shit.
Well, and that's the thing too. I never felt any sympathy for Marina,
Right.
Because she's totally just a cyber stalker.
They actually
It's terrible.
Laura is totally in the right to like ghost her.
They actually
because
try
she's
to make
creepy as fuck.
Laura very sympathetic, and she goes out of her way to talk to this girl, and then she ends up just being a fucking weirdo.
Yeah,
at
and then
some
this girl's
point.
she's a fucking weirdo, and then it's like, oh, Laura's being punished because she unfriended her, and it's like, but she didn't cyberbully her or anything. She just didn't invite her to her birthday party, and then posted pictures of her birthday party on Facebook. Like that's the only slightly asshole-ish thing she did. But now she's supposed to be getting punished with
on
black
top of
magic.
that, Marina fucking confronted her in front of everyone in the cafeteria and started like screaming at her.
Yeah, like a totally crazy person.
Bitch, I don't even know you.
Yeah, why are we supposed to have sympathy for this chick, you know?
Have you ever you've had that person in high school, or they seem to just latch on to you, and hey, that's great. It's always nice to be friends with someone, but then they begin to get too close, and they always message you, and they don't really leave you alone because they're so obsessed with being around you that, well, you don't want to be the dick in that situation, but that's not what normal people do. You have to let everyone have some space. And so if you write a character that is just, I mean, she photoshops her face onto a picture with Laura, and at that point I would call the police on somebody.
Yeah, that's weird as shit. And also, like, they basically ripped this entire premise from the fucking Facebook episode of South Park that came out like 6 years ago.
Oh god, you're right.
Yeah, where like the one kid has 0 friends on Facebook, and so Kyle pities him and friends him, and then the kid becomes obsessed, and then Kyle starts losing friend stock because he's friends with the unpopular kid. That is this movie.
Right, because...
Except instead of her losing friends because the chick is unpopular, it's because the chick is a witch and has cursed her.
Well, she cursed her by having the most excessive suicide. She hangs herself and then sets herself on fire.
Which we learn later is part of a ritual that if you hang yourself and set yourself on fire in front of a black mirror at the same time, then you'll become like a wasp demon or something.
And the Black Mirror is her laptop because that's such a new original idea.
Yeah, right. Not at all the entire premise of the show Black Mirror.
Yeah, that's why they titled it.
That's why it's called Black Mirror, because when your phone or your computer is off, it's a reflective black surface. And this movie is a fucking hot mess. I barely even remember the way that, like, this chick ends up cursed. It's like she posts the suicide video onto her Facebook, and like people who watch it then kill themselves.
She posts it on Laura's page as Laura,
right,
and tags all of her friends.
That's right.
And every time she tries to delete it, it says like unknown error.
Unknown fucking error.
They were originally going to title this movie Unknown Error, but they thought it would be too close to Unfriended, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
It's the only conflict in this film. They couldn't manufacture any other way that they couldn't get rid of this ghost. Just every time they try and unfriend it, it's an unknown error.
Yeah, it's like, and they can't delete their Facebook accounts either because unknown error. Just fucking turn off your computer.
Yeah.
Throw your phone out the fucking window. Do something like that.
I love how,
But no, you guys, because millennials are so attached to their devices that they would sooner get cursed by a witch than just get rid of their phones.
Yeah, like the cyber ghost like keeps posting fucked up shit on her page.
Every time one of her friends dies, it takes a video of it and posts it to Laura's page.
Yeah.
And so she continually is losing friends because obviously people are like, why are you posting these suicide videos?
She gets like suspended because of it.
Yeah.
Because their dean is like, you gotta stop posting all these live leak videos. It's kind of fucked up.
And then
she's like, oh no, it's not me, it's the ghost.
Yeah, it's the ghost.
She even calls Facebook at one point and is like, yo, delete my account already. And they're like, oh, we can't do that.
We're getting
we sell
unknown
too
error
much
here.
ads with your information.
We try to delete your account. We keep getting this unknown error. I don't know anything. I work for Facebook, but I don't know anything about that.
Do you happen to know a witch that committed a ritual in front of a laptop? You might be having these problems because of that.
Every time they would post one of those videos to Facebook, I kept hoping it would be captioned with something like "smash that motherfucking like," because that would be way more accurate to the internet.
They
Hey,
couldn't
look at
even
this
try
chick-
and have a...
Look at this chick who killed herself. Smash that motherfucking like.
Yeah, certainly it's missing enough of a sense of humor to make it...
It's completely devoid of humor.
Were there any memes in any of these movies? I'm trying to think.
Oh, well,
There were memes in Unfriended.
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
get to
which-
that.
Yeah,
but
okay.
No, there were no memes in Friend Request that I can recall. And I think that's one of its biggest downfalls.
Yeah.
There was the detectives, the worst detectives I think I've ever seen in a horror movie. These guys were so incompetent and awful, and they're interviewing Laura, and she's telling them how someone else is doing this on her account. They're like, oh, it's really strange how you got that elevator footage. How did you get that of your friend dying?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
One of
So-
her friends killed himself in an elevator, and it's like the security camera footage that's posted. And they're like, "You're a college student. You shouldn't have access to that elevator security footage." Well, obviously, yeah, she doesn't because it's a fucking ghost.
Yeah.
All of the kills are like they get chased by wasps, and then there's these wasp kids who are like have like fucked up faces.
Oh,
Yeah, just
right.
because they've been stung
wasps
by a lot of
so
wasps.
many times.
Yeah, that was another thing. Like, why were there wasps in this movie? We didn't get any sort of explanation other than, black wasps are associated with evil and the devil, and that's it. But
Hey,
they're-
I mean, people hate wasps.
yeah, like white Anglo-Saxon Protestants.
The fat girl is in the hospital, and then she like starts hallucinating and seeing like herself, right?
Yeah, they always like see themselves killing themselves. Or
Yeah,
something.
and then she like kills
movie's so
herself in
forgettable.
front of the cops. And the cops just because like
well, she takes one of their guns.
yeah,
Oh, God.
She takes one of their guns
because
and,
these cops are the worst.
like,
Yeah, he's having some conversation about eating like fucking spaghetti or some shit.
no, Chinese food.
Chinese
He's
food.
on the phone with his wife or something like that, and she just walks up and takes his fucking gun and shoots herself. Like, these cops are so fucking incompetent.
Yeah, that detective. Oh, I'm getting fired. Oh fuck.
This is a bunch of paperwork.
So I guess the extremely loose plot of this movie is Laura trying to figure out a way to break the curse, and of course she has to then do investigation into who Marina is and her past. And of course she was born in some sort of satanic witch cult
with
Asylum.
the help of, for some reason, her hacker friend who's got a
Well-
crush, and then her not hacker boyfriend who looks like he works at a surf shop or something.
Yeah, and who has the largest, nicest apartment that any college student has ever had.
Yeah, like it's a penthouse
Yeah,
that
this, like,
she's living in.
Yeah,
like
this-
any college student could ever afford that.
That's overlooking like the ocean or whatever.
That
Hey,
beautiful.
If you're rich in South Africa and white.
No, it's the Californian oceans.
Oh
That's
yeah.
beautiful,
Yeah.
sunny California there.
Well, yeah, it's supposed to, of course, take place in California, but it looks very much like Africa the whole time. I'm like,
Yeah.
who are they trying to fool? There's even like people driving on the wrong side of the road.
When they're driving through the brush to get to the asylum. But we should go back to the hacker boyfriend for a second. Not
Well, the
the
hacker
boyfriend.
friend.
The
The
hacker friend.
who
because, of
wants to be
course,
the boyfriend.
Who they go to the asylum.
His name is Kobe.
Yeah.
That's important to point out.
And so they go to the asylum and they're trying to find Marina's laptop because apparently if you find it, you can undo the curse.
If you find and break the original Black Mirror,
Hacker Man, he looks into a mirror and gets spooked. And he just fucking stabs Laura in the
Yeah,
stomach.
right in the fucking gut.
Right in the
And it's
gut.
just totally brushed off. Like, it's not a big deal at all that she was stabbed in the stomach.
yeah,
And
it
she's
adds no
just-
suspense. She's fine.
Yeah,
right
she's
after-
totally fine with
minutes
it.
later, she's like running, and it's like, yeah, she's holding her side, but she's not losing a lot of blood. She's not like going into shock or anything like that. She's just been stabbed in the gut, and she's super good at doing stuff with that stab wound. And then right after that, She figures out like where Marina killed herself and where her laptop is, so she hails a cab, and she's got a stab wound, and she's just like sitting in the back seat, and dude's like, are you sure you don't want me to take you to the hospital?
Yeah, he even says, and he's like, hey, affair's affair.
The only voice of reason in this movie.
And he's just like, she's like, no, take me to the abandoned building.
Yeah, take me to the abandoned steel mill.
See, we missed the part when she called the Lyft driver, and the Lyft driver's like, no.
The driver's like, well, as somebody who does drive for Lyft occasionally, I wouldn't want somebody with a stab wound in my car. Do you know how hard blood is to get out of upholstery?
Yeah, I would have loved a little more development on that. The taxi driver, like, are you sure you want to go to a steel mill? Okay, they better have Band-Aids or something at this place, because I don't know if you're going to last very long. But, of course, she's still fine because she's got to finish up this god-awful movie.
Yeah.
And her boyfriend, who's looking for... Because he's just super jealous of this scrawny little, like the
neckbeardness.
Yeah, the hacker dude isn't, like, competition for this guy, but he gets upset.
Hey, use his name. It's Kobe.
You're right. I'm sorry. That's the reason why, though.
Like fucking Kobe Bryant. You bring up a good point. Like the boyfriend obviously knows like there's some like weird supernatural shit going on here. Yet every time Laura like seeks help from Kobe, who is of course the token tech savvy hacker character, her boyfriend's always just like, "Oh, you're hanging out with Kobe." It's like, bitch, there's some fucking spooky ass shit going on. Like,
our friends are dying around us.
Our friends are literally being killed by a wasp witch. Like, you should not be concerned about your girlfriend cheating on you, because I think that's probably the farthest thing from her mind as well. So,
before we wrap up this movie, can we talk about the kind of cyclical ending?
Oh,
how garbage it was.
The worst part of it.
You know, I'm gonna be honest. Until you brought it up just now, I had forgotten it. That's how bad it is. I blocked it out almost immediately. Yeah, Ben, why don't you explain that?
She loses all her friends.
Yeah, she goes down to having 0 friends.
Yeah, because all of them die or unfriend her because she's a fucking creep sharing live leak videos and stuff. It cuts forward and she's at like another college. And she's the one wearing a hoodie and being all Hot Topic emo and trying to gain friends on Facebook.
It's like the curse has been passed on.
Transferred, yeah.
It's like now she's the unpopular one who's a witch or something. It doesn't make any sense. There's literally nothing in the entire movie before that to suggest that this is the way that it will work or that it has happened before, because it hasn't. Because we find out that Marina was like born into a cult or something. It's not like she used to be popular and had this curse transferred to her by somebody else who was unpopular on Facebook. Like, this just did not make any sense to me at all.
Right, because then all the reasons, backstory why this girl became the girl that she was just is thrown out the window. It's some sort of curse that just gets passed on, or
the curse of unpopularity.
Oh yes,
that's another thing that I found really patronizing about this movie. It's like the idea that if you're not popular, then you're automatically a fucking creep weirdo.
Right?
You know?
Like just plays
social
into the
worth
whole...
is connected to the amount of
to the number of
friends you have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's such fucking horseshit. I guess the last bad thing that we can talk about is about halfway through the movie, Laura figures out what Marina's real name is. Or something.
Jesus!
And her last name is Nedifar. Nedifar.
Which is too dumb of a name to not mean something else.
Right. As soon as I heard it, I'm like, well, that's definitely not a real name. So, like, what's the deal with that? Turns out it's an anagram for a friend.
They should have just made it really long and make it an anagram for friend request.
That's what they.
What's an anagram for a fucking Facebook creep?
What's an anagram for this is a really bad fucking movie? All right. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about this really, really shitty movie?
God, not really. This is an upsetting episode because I think we have to sift through a lot of trash.
But yeah, I think unlike some of the movies last episode, we're really, really all on the same page about this one. This movie fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
don't waste your time with this one. Should we give it a rating?
Oh, yes, of course.
Start with you, Eugene.
Well, I think because it has humor in it, unlike some of the other films that I think that we're covering in this episode. So I'm going to give it 1 star because I think if you're looking for just a dumb, shallow film where stupid teenagers die and...
Stupid 30-year-olds who are playing teenagers.
Right. You don't really care about backstory and you don't care about anything really making sense, then hey, watch this movie.
I would very loosely call this movie a narrative. There's not a whole lot of story to it, and the story that is there doesn't make a fucking lick of sense. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to give it 1 out of 5 pods. That 1 is basically just for the laughs that we got at some of the really stupid shit that happens in this movie.
I'm gonna give this a... Oh, man, I'm so on the fence.
Speak from the heart, Ben.
At first, I was gonna rate it 1 star or 1 pod because it's god awful, but I think... No, you know what? I'll just rate it 1 pod out of 5. It was pretty shitty.
All right.
It was entertaining at times because we were just roasting it the whole time we were watching it.
Which, hey, I mean,
justifiably,
I think we spent.
awful.
I think we spent more time roasting this movie than actually listening to dialogue in this shit.
So solid.
I do remember the really good one is once they figure out that all of this shit is happening because of the witch chick. The oldest looking friend says, "Unfriend that dead bitch."
Oh, fuck.
That's a solid round.
Solid 1.
1 out
all
of 5 from all of us. This movie fucking sucks.
Yeah, goddamn.
Let's move on to our second movie.
Yes, let's.
Which,
What we know of Friend Request is that it was supposed to be a remake of Unfriended. And to take us over there on that journey, we got Ben.
Okay, so Unfriended is all about this girl, Laura... What was her last
Barnes?
name? I always want to say Palmer, but that's just Twin Peaks.
That's just Twin Peaks.
I think it's Laura Barnes.
Laura Barnes, yeah, that's right. She ended up committing suicide after an embarrassing video of her drunk, shitting her pants leaked onto social media. And it's a year after she killed herself. This group of friends, high school, like seniors, are hanging out on Skype, and the ghost of Laura Barnes appears in their Skype hangout and won't disappear. And slowly, Laura takes revenge on this group of teenagers who kind of caused her suicide. The whole movie is on a single computer in real time, in like a single take, and it's mainly this... What's the main girl's name?
Blair. I think.
Blair, yeah.
Yeah, Blair.
Blair is on this computer, and she's Skyping her boyfriend and then her group of friends, and they're just kind of hanging out. They use the internet really interestingly in this movie, I think. They use it pretty realistically for the most part. It starts off with a live leak video of Laura killing herself, which is totally where you'd find suicide videos.
If anywhere, yeah, it would be on fucking Live Leak. Like, I know they have to do the setup, but I did find it a little bit weird that this girl who claimed to be, like, one of Laura's best friends from, like, when they were little was watching a video of her commit suicide.
I agree.
On the anniversary of her death. Like, that seemed a little unrealistic. I would definitely never watch a video of somebody that I cared about committing suicide.
I just justified that as like guilt. She felt guilty about it.
I guess that's possible, but she was doing it like right before like having Skype sex, so I think that like that wouldn't turn me on.
Yeah. Should we kind of go over all of the friends?
Oh, God, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
So,
Well, we got our favorite. We got Kevin.
Ken.
Oh, Ken.
And
Wow, I guess he really is my favorite, huh?
He's the token fat friend in this movie.
He's the fat stoner who makes dick and butt jokes.
The problem
Fart
is
jokes.
he's really the only one that is entertaining because all the others have to sort of be the straight ones, the ones that are scared and spooked out. He's just the one taking it like, fuck it. Whatever.
Well, they're all the worst too, really.
Yes, as the movie goes, they really show themselves to be just awful people. So
Yeah. Well, you have Blair's boyfriend who like intros himself by like telling her to take off her clothes by pointing a knife at his camera. And then you have her atomic blonde ditzy friend
Jess.
Jess.
Jess, was that? Oh, y'all remember that?
It's just the worst. You have their other friend who
I think he's
Blair's-
supposed to be the boyfriend's best friend.
Yeah.
Charlie.
Adam.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know
Adam.
why I was thinking Charlie. and then
And then you have the one girl that comes into the Skype chat that everyone is shitting on the whole time.
Yeah,
What's her name?
Val.
Val, yeah.
how do you guys remember these?
It's just
people's
Eugene
names?
remembering all these names, honestly.
It's a small cast, thankfully, and they say their names over and over again.
Yeah,
like,
I
they
had forgot.
really
I
don't.
remembered Blair.
Yeah,
Certainly, the
Ken's
fact
man.
that I remember does not mean I enjoyed the movie. So
Ken is not the first one to die, but the second one, right?
Yeah,
Because Val dies first.
Val's the first one.
Which I thought that scene was pretty well done. Like, she's just, like, staring into her camera, and everyone thinks it's just frozen. And then you see her phone kind of move, vibrating on the table, and you realize something's super wrong.
yeah, they try and do some pretty interesting things with the idea. I mean, she goes onto some forum about ghosts, like, oh, is there a ghost contacting me? And you can see some banners, and they're all things like "Who's following me?" or "Escape." And so I think those are pretty clever things to put in. Just
For the most part, I feel like this movie understands the internet. And if you're gonna make a modern horror about the internet and utilizing the internet, I think this one did a pretty good job with it.
I think sure, it understands the internet and the websites and all, but it does not understand teenagers at all. And I think that's just the problem of any screenwriter out there that's too old to be doing it.
I think it definitely did a better job understanding the way teenagers are on the internet than Friend Request.
Sure,
Yeah.
but it's a very low bar to set for Unfriended. But
It
certainly,
definitely understood the medium.
oh
Yes.
You know, I really like the typing where she'll like type something and then kind of delete it or rephrase it. And it kind of shows, like how people, how you convey someone's thoughts without showing people. And I thought that was super interesting.
To show some conflict, and we see it a couple of times. It gives us indications that there's stuff about her and her relationship with Laura that we don't fully understand yet. It gives some subtle little clues as to what's going on.
Right. Well, I think besides that one point, it doesn't really reveal too much of anything. It's just one of those character things that just adds on to the realism of the film, I guess you could say.
Yeah, well, Blair, since it's all from the perspective of her computer, like, she's really the protagonist, so it definitely is a good way of characterizing her a little bit more, giving us a little bit more insight into what she's thinking and feeling and who she is. And at least for most of the movie, she definitely seems like the least shitty out of all of these people.
Until they start playing Five Fingers, Never Have I Ever.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And then it's just revealed that everyone in that friend group is just the worst human being and totally deserve it.
Well, we should provide some context for
Okay,
people
sure.
who haven't seen this movie. Essentially, the conflict is that once Laura's ghost starts essentially fucking with them, she is basically revealing their dirtiest secrets to each other and to other people online. It starts with her posting a bunch of pictures of Val super hammered at a party.
Like smoking a bong.
Like
too,
smoking a
and-
bong and shit, but she posts it through each of the friends' Facebook accounts. It's like, okay, they go to delete it and it pops up from another one of their accounts. So already better than friend requests. It's like, I just can't delete it. Unknown error. I just can't do it. It's definitely definitely more of a creative workaround. So as it goes on, it picks up speed, and Laura's ghost is essentially trying to turn this group of friends against each other by revealing to them the super duper shitty things that they've done to each other in the past, which are dramatic to say the least.
Yeah. Blair's boyfriend ratted their friend out for selling weed, right?
Yep.
And the girl Jess stole $800 from the same dude who got the cops called on him. So already it seems like they have it out for Adam.
Yeah, and then Blair crashed Jess's mom's car or something, and
right?
got her and wouldn't fess up to it.
Blair drunkenly slept with Adam.
Yep.
Multiple times.
Oh, yeah. It was an accident, though. So.
Oh, yeah. Accidentally fell on his dick.
Yeah. So essentially,
why would they put banana peels in the shower?
These people are all just super shitty. Like, I don't know why they're friends in the first place.
And that's sort of the big problem, I think, that begins to arise in Unfriended. That, I mean, you always have to make these sort of characters a little unlikable so that you don't feel bad when they die, that you're waiting for it to happen. But
right, like it's their comeuppance. And
it's almost like they're superhumanly awful, all of these people.
I do think some of that stuff was a bit over dramatic.
Oh, yeah.
Like, why the fuck are these like high school students ratting on each other to the cops and like stealing $800 from each other? Yeah, these people are a little over the top in how terrible they are. Yeah. But at least it makes you feel not so bad when they die. Unlike in Friend Request, where all of these people are dying for no reason. They haven't done shit wrong other than that they're just like popular and kind of bitchy.
Right. Which you could tell was certainly something that the director probably tried to fix. Maybe he didn't like how cartoony all of the people got near the end of that, but he goes too far with it in Friend Request, and then they're all too sympathetic, and so you wonder why they're dying.
Yeah,
in the
there's
first
a
place.
point during the Five Fingers game where you have to ask, why are these people friends with each other?
Right,
they're the worst to
Right.
each other.
Although, why was Ken a douche? What was his problem? Because he died before they started playing that game. Like, what did Ken do that was so bad?
I don't think he did. Oh, I think he just
hashtag Ken did nothing wrong.
He just called Laura like a bitch or something before everything happened. And see, I think one problem is, sure, they have a good understanding of the websites they're using, and they try and make it all like as if it were a natural progression on these sites, but that
there are some questionable things,
and they're like glaring holes in the way everything plays out. There's a point when she shares her screen and she never turns it off. She's messaging her boyfriend about things in the chat, and it's never mentioned again. It's as if it just turned off on its own.
One thing that I thought was weird they never explained was whenever she like pulls up her instant messenger page and she's talking to somebody, like all the rest of the sound on her computer is muted.
Only sometimes.
Sometimes though.
When it's convenient.
We see the other people in the background like still talking on Skype, but we don't hear them at all. And it does that sometimes and then other times not, and that's never really explained, and it doesn't make
sloppy.
A lot of sense.
It feels
that did feel sloppy. I noticed that too. It definitely it takes you out of it. It breaks your suspension of disbelief a little bit.
I feel like the fact that it's all on one screen, that they don't move any locations, that they have control of everything that happens in this movie, it really feels lazy that they had those glaring holes they didn't bother to go over when they had the freedom to do whatever they wanted with the characters, with the way they shot it. It just seems like not really a missed opportunity, squandered, I guess I'd say, because if they had been able to just pick up on those, it would be a much tighter film.
Right, like they were going in the right direction, but they took like some half measures. They didn't quite take it all the way where it needed to be. And then, there were just some other just like little weird things that took me out. Like the fact that she keeps going to Spotify and playing music while she's talking to people.
Which is it's just a lame workaround to have a soundtrack in the movie and make it diegetic, and it felt very forced.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes is with Spotify, though, when the Liar song starts playing on
the ghost takes control of her
and
Spotify.
makes a playlist of like the same Liar song like 200 times.
Yeah, she can't turn it off.
That's quality shit posting.
That was quality.
Oh, and well, we can't forget the memes the ghost makes as well.
Oh yeah, the ghost is like meme master, just like whipping memes up, no problem. Like at the point where, for additional context, when these people die, the ghost like possesses them and forces them to kill themselves. Like Ken sticks his blender like under his jaw that he conveniently has sitting next to his computer. I don't know why he keeps the blender
He's
there.
making salsa.
He's making salsa. And then later on, when Jess kills herself by like shoving her
hair curler,
her curling iron like down her throat, and then immediately the ghost takes a screenshot of that and does like one of those bottom text memes. It's like, she finally shut the fuck up, or STFU, and I lost it. I was laughing so hard.
And there's also
meme master ghost.
The pictures, because we find out about halfway through the movie that Blair, who has said that she's a virgin to her boyfriend, it's found out that she slept with Adam, and the files that are sent, they have names like "He touched you good."
I actually wrote a couple of those down because that is good. There was not boyfriend dot JPEG, and then also he touch dot JPEG. He touch good. Not boyfriend. He touch.
He gave that a poke. One of the real shit posting. It definitely is a teenage ghost, so
right. And so I think they got that right, and like. They did a pretty decent job, I think, with writing realistically teenage characters.
I didn't feel the same way. I felt that they just sort of devolved down to any other normal, obnoxious teenager you'd find in any horror film. I didn't find them particularly special or realistic.
Do you guys know how much of this movie was improvised dialogue? I feel like it was a pretty good amount because
well, I know that they had a script that they ran through. I imagine they probably changed it up for certain scenes when they shot it if they felt, because again, they should have the freedom to do it any way they want with this setup.
The movie shot in one take.
I read on IMDb that they improv'd all of the five-finger game.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Well, that would explain why they're so balls to the walls. I mean, that's a point when you shouldn't really let it all to the improv, because they're going to come up with shit that's so unrealistic that they might see as intense that just sort of comes off as fake. If that scene really was improvised, I guess it's maybe more forgivable that they go so.
I can only assume that a fair amount of this movie was improvised. Yeah, I mean the acting's not great, but it's definitely better than Friend Request, I think.
Yes, again, a very low bar.
Low bar. It doesn't take much to beat Friend Request. There's some really weird, ridiculous stuff, like when Adam gets out his gun and starts pointing it at the computer.
Right, yeah.
When shit's going down, like he's gonna fucking shoot the ghost out of his Facebook.
What do you think would happen if they just all turn their computers off?
Right, that's the obvious thing. Like, why couldn't they just all? Because at a certain point, they're like, okay, well, we're all just gonna hang up, and the ghost's like, don't hang up. But why?
Well, then you see because Mitch, being the fat one, he has to be the smartest. So
Ken did nothing wrong.
Ken did nothing wrong. 2017.
It's some antivirus thing, which also is just the way they manufacture tension in that scene is she's about to delete all of the viruses she has on her computer, which are a lot. She shouldn't have
numerous. Viruses.
It's more than just the ghost she has to worry about on her computer.
The antivirus software that totally looks like a virus.
Yes. Yeah.
Ken is the generic hacker character in this one. He's the Kobe of
right, but he's not even knowledgeable, at least in Friend Request, because he looks at the code of the websites and it's in some ghost code that keeps moving around. But with Ken, he just, I have this antivirus software I can give you. Just run this program and then you'll be fine.
But also, like, for his age, I feel like that was way more realistic than Kobe in Friend Request.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like, especially with teenagers, it's like there are people who are tech savvy, but not like hackers. You know, I think that Ken was just more one of those like tech savvy guys. Like, take me for instance. Like, I know how to torrent things, but like, I'm not a fucking hacker.
Let's talk about that jump scare at the end. The Blumhouse trademark jump scare, because every single Blumhouse movie has to have a jump scare at the end for some reason.
Christ.
Yeah.
Did they also produce Paranormal Activity?
Yes.
Yep.
So, oh my god, yeah, they've been doing this for
I saw
years.
Oren Peli, the director of Paranormal Activity, was like an executive producer on this one.
Really?
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that. But yeah, so we find out at the end that Blair was the one who posted the video of Laura shitting herself at the party on Facebook, and so that's why she killed herself. After we've been like the whole movie, she's been deflecting that and saying that it wasn't her. So Laura's the last one left. And do you want to explain the jump scare after that, Ben?
Sure. So the whole movie is on the computer, and right at the end, the computer closes, and the ghost of Laura just jumps out at Blair.
Roll
basically.
credits.
Roll
Yeah.
credits.
Which is awful, and I think
Yeah,
that
dumb.
I think it would have been cooler if once the video of Laura Barnes out there on Blair's Facebook page showing that Blair was the one who took it, you see everyone on Facebook calling her a scumbag, that she deserves to die, and that it would have been much cooler if she was left there knowing that, and then
And that all of her best friends have just been killed already.
You could argue living would be worse than death in that
or
situation.
that she would make the conscious decision to commit suicide, that she would then do what she did to Laura.
Leaving it open just doesn't hit you over the head with that, and it's more bleak that way. I think.
so
Yes.
too. I think that would have been much
because
better.
she has to live with the guilt as well. So
And also, like, I think this movie's strongest aspect is that it is done entirely from a computer screen, like
Oh,
it's
yes.
being screen shared.
Because we know what the movie would be without that, and
Right,
it would
it
be
would
friend
be-
request.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It would be friend request. And, like, there's nothing particularly creative about the story itself or even original, you know? It's just some shithead teenagers who cyberbullied a girl to death, you know? It's the convention of using the screen sharing and having the entire movie take place from that perspective that makes it even semi-effective.
yeah, well, I would say that it's, like kind of a generic, mediocre contemporary horror movie, just executed on a medium pretty well.
Well, that's
And that's what makes it a pretty good movie.
I think that's what makes it very interesting that Paranormal Activity was also done by Blumhouse. That movie really succeeded. I mean, outside of all of its generic, dumb things within it, it's because it was in that style of found footage. The Blair Witch Project was not the last movie to be a success in that format. Paranormal Activity was, I mean, maybe even bigger. I think they were trying to make lightning strike twice with this sort of format. And then they want to franchise it as well, so maybe we'll see Unfriended 2 in a couple of
Do
years.
they really? Do we have to?
Why does everything have to be a franchise?
Yeah, why does it have to be
anymore?
a franchise? Why can't they just take something successful and be like, hey, we've got this cool one-off that works? Like,
Well, I think it happens even more with horror because they
Yeah.
can be so much easier. I mean, Paranormal Activity costs, I mean, I know it's much less than $1 million, that whole movie.
Yeah,
And
Paranormal Activity is actually, I think, one of the highest ratio movies in terms of budget to returns.
I would believe it.
Like
I would believe that,
it was shot
too.
for like under 400K,
Even
but
though
it made
I saw-
like hundreds of millions of dollars.
I saw that movie in theaters, and I guess I don't know if having a crowd there would have made it better, but I was in the theater just with one other friend, and so we were completely alone in there, and it didn't scare me at all. I didn't feel at any point a sort of tension, and I wonder if it would have been different if the theater had been crowded. 'Cause
I
know-
definitely think an audience helped that movie. I saw it with
think
a few
so.
people that were really scared by horror movies, and it made it a little more entertaining and spooky.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't see Paranormal Activity for the first time until like a year or two after it came out, and so I just watched it at home. I think with this girl that I was trying to get with at the time, because
Yeah.
you
Right.
watch
As you do.
as you do, you watch the scary movies.
Yeah.
And I thought it was pretty decently effective for what it did. Paranormal Activity is one of the like worst horror franchises in recent history. I've seen all of them.
We'll have to do an episode on all of them because
I'll save everybody the trouble and say the third one is the best one.
It's where they go back to like the 80s or something. Right?
The third one's the best one. The first one follows that up. The rest of them are not worth anybody's time.
we should probably move on. We've been talking about this for a long time at this point. I'll start. I actually really enjoyed this movie. This is the second time I saw this. First time I would rate it 3.5. This time I'm on the fence between 3 and 3.5, but I think I'll go 3.5 out of 5 pods. I thought it was kind of a generic story, but executed very well and very originally on a medium in a way I haven't seen a feature film do. And I have to give it props for that. So
I agree with you. That's what made it work for me. Like I just said, I don't think I would have enjoyed this movie nearly as much if it had not been on the medium that it was. I'm gonna give it a solid 3 out of 5. It had a lot of problems, some really goofy things and some mediocre acting, but conceptually, I think it pulled off what it was trying to do well. So yeah, 3 from me.
Well, for me, I was not as big of a fan, but I think that this is an enjoyable experience. I think certainly much more enjoyable than Friend Request. I feel like the format does leave a lot to be desired. They do a lot of interesting things, but never really go as far as I think they could have with those ideas. And just some of the characters in it, I think they stray too far into caricatures. You never want to make them too cartoonish because then it just feels like all tension is lost. So I think I'm gonna have to go with a 2.5 on this one.
So a solid 3 out of 5 pods.
Solid 3 out of 5. Yep.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Works for me.
Now we are going to go back into the early 2000s and check out what I think is definitely the worst film that we covered this episode is feardotcom. This came out in 2002 and it's about a serial killer, and then it's also about a website that is possessed by a spirit, and it's one of the most confusing and out of place things in the movie, trying to play around with those.
If you go into this movie looking for any sort of logic, you're gonna have a bad
It's mostly
very
just
bad
nonsense.
time. Yeah. And it mainly follows, he's just like a police officer. I don't think he's anything special. Stephen Dorff plays the main cop in this. And then I always forget her name, but she's the love interest in the Truman Show.
She plays a health officer?
Yeah, she's from the Department of Health. They're called in firstly because there's a woman that they find dead in a bathtub. The boyfriend that's brought in, he's all messed up in the face. He's bleeding from the eye, so you can tell something happened to him as well. They go to check out the body. Stephen Dorff, he directly touches the body or something, and then when the Department of Health person comes in, she explains that it might be a disease similar to Ebola.
Yeah, she's like, oh yeah, it's Ebola.
And they just breeze on by that. They don't put on any protective gear. Although in the prison where they put the German boyfriend, they come back, they see that he's killed himself, and then more people from the Department of Health come in hazmat suits. Stephen Dorff asks if he should be wearing them, and she says, oh, we're probably all infected at this point. If there is
Can't
Ebola.
catch double Ebola.
Yeah, exactly, right. What are they going to do? Grow stronger? That begins the investigation into what happened with them. They find a video camera under the bathtub that shows them going onto a website. They begin to act very strangely. The boyfriend's acting violent, and the last shot we see is the woman in the bathtub before something comes for her. So
What website is this?
Yeah,
and
please
so
tell us.
we learn that this site is feardotcom.com.
Yeah, spelled out, fear.com. Even the dot is spelled out.
.com. Because apparently, whoever owned the actual fear.com, they did not want to give up the website to this production company because they probably knew that this was going to be a trash movie. So they were left with fear.com.com.
And the number of times that we see somebody type that into the address bar in this movie is absurd. And every time it happens, I fucking laughed my ass off.
And they should have avoided showing it at all costs because all it does is...
When you see somebody type feardotcom.com, it just totally takes you out of it.
Oh God, I can't believe I have to talk about this one. Because this movie just doesn't seem to have much of anything. It's in one part supposed to be a ghost story, and then about 20 minutes into the film, we're introduced to the serial killer played by Stephen Ray. He comes up to his first victim and shoves a camera like right in her face, says something creepy along the lines of, "It's been so long since I've seen the world outside of a lens.
You'll be a star, girl.
Yeah, we
kind of
really need to talk about his voice, because I feel like they were trying to make him like Jeffrey Dahmer or something. He talks like this through the whole movie.
Yeah, oh, he sounds awful. It's so annoying every time you hear him speak, and they give him so much dialogue.
He talks so much, and it's always like quasi metaphysical monologue about the internet or something like that.
It's like Hannibal Lecter
2002.
if he only got a degree in philosophy from a community college.
And had a deviated septum.
Yes. Yeah. The whole movie just really seems to be the worst. It is 2 hours long, and we only got about an hour
like
in.
4.
Yeah, we were struggling to finish up this movie by the end of it all.
We should talk about the Stephen Ray character a little bit more. So he talks to this like girl who's working in a box office, buying tickets, telling her she'll be a star.
I'm filming you because I'm making a movie.
Come to my creepy abandoned theater.
Yeah,
where I can blast Ramstein and then chloroform you.
Oh, Jesus, right.
They actually play. Well, because the girl and her boyfriend that they find at the beginning are like weird, like German.
They're like Ramstein Germans.
They're like weird,
they
like
look
German.
Like they're super into industrial music.
German punks, and I made some joke about how they've been listening to too much Rammstein, and then when Stephen Ray's character actually abducts this chick, they're playing fucking Rammstein over that scene. Don't get me wrong, I love Rammstein. And like the ghost who runs the website feardotcom.com is like German sometimes, but then not German other times.
Now
like,
here's the thing that I may have missed in the movie just because I tuned out at a certain point, but Stephen Ray is the serial killer, and it's supposed to be assumed that the spirit that's running the website is a victim of Stephen Ray's. And
well, yeah, we find that out later.
Right. Well, as we see, that's part of the, because all the victims die after 48 hours. It's some game that the computer's asking them to play, and it seems that the game is to try and find Stephen Ray's character in the awful montage of images that you see when they open up the website, which I'm sure must have been groundbreaking back in the early 2000s, just like I'm sure the Lawnmower Man looked fantastic when it came out.
Or Tron.
Yeah, exactly. Or something like
art.
Tron. And when you watch it, it is one of the worst aged things I've ever seen of a representation of the internet. You know, that's something good that The Matrix tried to avoid. All they ever really showed was code. They didn't try and date themselves too awfully.
The Matrix is still pretty fucking dated.
Yeah, the style of cool is very early 2000s.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely it's a product of its time.
All the leather.
But I think that they made a smart choice to not try and... I mean, you have some of the special effects on Agent Smith and whatnot, but that they didn't try and go too hard with any of the visual effects. You know, you don't see... Well, the tentacle creatures things, I guess they are in the first movie too, right? But they don't show up as prominently as in
and they look...
others.
I mean, it had a budget, so they look okay.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
terrible.
We can't say that, like, there wasn't good CG in the early 2000s because The Lord of the Rings came out.
Oh yeah, no, it's more just a bad grasp on the technology at the time. Yeah.
Well, it looks like they're trying to aesthetically make it be like Seven, like David Fincher's movie.
Yeah, they do a lot of stuff.
They do a lot of... It's like this movie is like The Ring meets Seven meets Saw, even though
Videodrome
meets Videodrome. Yeah, that's better because Saw actually came out after this.
The combination of the serial killer and the supernatural stuff felt super disjointed.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. We don't even figure out what the connection between them is until like the last 10 minutes of the movie. What it ends up being is that the ghost who runs the fear.com website that kills you if you visit it was one of the victims of the serial killer dude. So she's been using that to try to find him and get back at him or something.
Which, it seems, why is she killing people then as well?
Yeah,
why are they on a
doesn't-
time limit?
There's no motivations whatsoever. Stephen Ray's motivation is literally that he can't feel emotions.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, we learned that relatively early on. He's like, I can't feel anything anymore. And that's why he kills people.
I have to say the kills that the spirit did were pretty hilarious, though. Because every time someone was about to die, they'd see that little white girl with white hair chasing a white ball.
A white ball who turns out to be the ghost when she was little or something.
And like half the time the ball would like melt into becoming cockroaches.
Yeah.
But the first kill you see, the dude sees the girl on subway tracks, and immediately he doesn't even
run. Yeah, he just walks over to her.
And then he realizes the train's coming, and instead of like ducking to the side where there's like 5 feet of space.
Well, he does at first.
He does, and then for some reason he decides to jump out in front of the train.
To try to get back up on the platform. Like, if he had just stayed up against the wall, he would have had so much space.
Yeah, there was so much space.
Because we see his body get thrown to the side, and then he's fine. He isn't getting hit by the train there. It's just such... and that was, again, one of those... Something so awful and poorly done happens right at the beginning, and you know you're in for a bad time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah,
At least...
Well, yeah, this is the first thing we see, and it's like, oh, God, it sets the tone for this film so well.
At least Friend Request and Unfriended had the foresight to be under 90 minutes. So,
holy shit. This movie is
Great
2
benefit.
fucking hours long.
It's way too long. Okay, after that train dude, we get the German Rammstein couple who die. And then we get off-brand Steve Buscemi.
Oh, yes, right.
Who, for some reason, decides, hey, I'm going to go visit an abandoned steel mill.
Yeah, which might be construed as he's trying to solve, like, the mystery from the website. But at that point, we don't know what he's going there for.
Yeah,
so
and
it just feels so out of place.
He's the main chick's boss. He works for the Department of Health. That's something that we really need to talk about, is that the fucking Department of Health is investigating a murder website. It doesn't make any
chain
sense.
smoker who hotboxes his car before having it driven into a fucking wall.
Yeah,
geez, the smoke. Because he gets into his car, he lights a cigarette, and then he looks out the window and he sees the little girl, which causes him to drop it. And then immediately it's like someone turns on a smoke machine and it starts to fill up the entire fucking...
All of a sudden his car is super smoky, and then it just drives itself into a wall and he dies.
Also, why would he even start smoking a cig without rolling his windows down?
I guess
I feel like that shit would just make your car smell immediately.
Dirty man is who he is.
Yeah. On that subject, like when he sees the little girl, let's talk about how bad the editing is in this movie, where they can't even get down the timing to successfully pull off a jump scare.
Ooh, man, yeah,
Like-
it's always like a second or two late.
Yeah, like our audience knows that we don't like jump scares because they're ineffective, but this movie cannot even pull off a successful jump scare because the timing is so off. It doesn't even actually startle you. You can see the moments where there's supposed to be a jump scare, like when he looks up and sees the little girl outside his car, but the timing is done so badly. It's like it's not startling at all.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just funny in this movie.
It's hilarious.
For some ungodly reason, Roger Ebert gave this a 2 out of 4 because he felt that the look of it and the style was something to be admired, or that it worked well as a nightmare scenario. I just can't believe that at all. I see nothing of that sort.
I feel like it must be indicative of the time that it came out, because I mean, this is my first time and hopefully only time seeing this movie in 2017, 15 years after it came out. Like, is it possible that it was more effective in 2002? I can't
Well, I don't
objectively-
even remember what big horror movies must have come out around that time, so I guess I can't say what the environment must have been like for the horror genre at that point.
I can think of Saw that came out the following year.
Oh, yeah. A lot of struggle with
Can
that.
we talk about my favorite line in this movie where they justify the popularity of the website?
Oh, yeah.
By
I was
being like,
I was going to bring that up, too.
it's all because of the focus on reality disaster shows. Like, what is a reality disaster show?
What the fuck is a reality disaster
Welcome
show?
to Extreme Home Breakover.
Where we break into your house and steal all of your things and throw your family out onto the street.
Crash that bus.
And it's just brushed off. Like, the cop is like, oh yeah, it's just everybody's obsession with reality disaster shows, and then they move on to something else. And then when the token hacker character in this movie, because every good movie about the internet has a token hacker character, when she finds the website and starts to go crazy, and she starts writing all over her apartment in binary. Doesn't make any sense. Why would she be writing in binary? It's efficient for computers, but super inefficient for people who, like, know words and shit.
Well, again, that's just a well-intentioned but misguided attempt at understanding the technology of the time.
And also how everybody in this movie, when they're told, don't go to feardotcom.com, and then they immediately go to fear.com.
Right, it would be...
Even after the point where the cop and the health inspector chick have determined that the website is what's killing people, and then they both go onto the website.
It's bad. Can we talk about when they go to the steel mill to investigate?
Oh, yeah, the steel mill.
So they go to investigate the steel mill because apparently that's
where the little girl used to play as a child.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
that's
She
right.
goes to see the girl's mom, and she shows her pictures like, do you recognize this? And the chick's mom's like, oh, that's the abandoned steel mill down the street. That was her favorite place to play as a little girl. Why are you letting your kids play in a fucking abandoned steel mill?
That's bad parenting right there.
So super bad parenting. You know how dangerous abandoned steel mills are?
But she goes to this abandoned steel mill, and there's just this homeless lady, like, sitting there with cataracts next to a fire.
Yeah, and the mill is, like, full of water. It's, like, all flooded for some reason.
Yeah, we were joking about it being all piss water. From the homeless lady.
Because it's, like, yellow, and the homeless lady just, like, points at the piss water, and the health inspector decides she's just gonna go for a swim in the piss water then.
Yeah, I mean, it's sterile.
I don't think so.
So, yeah, she dives in with her waterproof flashlight.
Yeah, that she just sort of has.
Yeah, and just kind of explores underwater for a while. Doesn't come up to breathe for a really long time.
And then she finds the body of the ghost or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even know what she does with that information.
I think, isn't that when she finds out that she was a victim
Of the
Stephen-
serial killer? Yeah, okay.
that was part of the reveal.
I guess so.
The whole third act was just a mess.
Super sloppy. Well, I mean, the whole movie is really sloppy, but...
But it ends in such a disgusting show of visual effects. They catch Stephen Ray, or they found him, and he's, torturing the girl that he caught in the beginning, and I forget the progression of it. He shoots Stephen Dorff in the chest.
Yeah, right in the heart. He
Yeah,
shoots him,
directly
right in the heart.
in the heart.
And it takes him such a long time to die,
Yeah.
whereas he would normally just be dead immediately from being shot in the heart. But he's still, like, crawling around for a while and gives time for the health inspector to, like, cradle his head in her arms and weep about him getting ready to die.
Right, and it's not even that he's the distraction at that point. When he's shot, the serial killer goes after the Department of Health character, and he's the one who goes on the computer, types in the
That's
website,
right.
and then he opens it, and Stephen Ray looks at it, and then that's when the ghost gets her awful, awful vengeance that looks gross. It looks like a pile of trash.
Her CG revenge.
It's all
Yeah.
like sepia tone. and brown and nasty.
Yeah, it's like he's getting attacked by like the spirits of all of the women that he's killed, but just like in his head, because it keeps cutting between that and him in the real world, and he's just like bleeding from his eyes. This shit's such a fucking mess, and the website doesn't make any sense either, because it's the ghost chick who I feel the need to mention again is sometimes German and sometimes not, always asking, do you want to play a game? If you say yes, there is no game. There's not actually ever a game. It just shows you a bunch of like quickly cut images and like knocks you out of your chair, and then you die in 48 hours. Like that's the game.
Yeah.
This is such
Let's just rate this.
Yeah,
and
let's
get
rate
on
this.
With it.
Half
Fuck
a
this
star.
movie.
If I can't rate it, 0. And not recommend it to anybody. There are much better, cheesier films out there I'm sure you could find about the internet around this time. So avoid this one.
I was very surprised to learn that this was not an Uwe Boll film because it reminded me of Alone in the Dark a lot in terms of just being insufferably bad.
At least Alone in the Dark had those first 10 minutes.
That first good 10 minutes of an otherwise absolutely horrible 2.5 hour movie.
Yeah. This movie does not have that.
No, it does
not
not.
even.
But I'm gonna go with you, Eugene. Half a pod. There's no redeemable qualities about this movie at all. Like, if we had not been all watching this together and just roasting the shit out of it, I would have had a much less enjoyable experience.
I'm probably going to go with the same thing. You know, usually I save half stars for movies that I can barely even consider films I just hate so much. Like, I usually separate half stars for, like, Meet the Spartans and shit like that.
I would barely consider this a film.
Yeah, but I think this kind of falls into that category, so I'm going to give it half a pod too. So
Half
solid
a pod
half pod
across the board.
avoid at all costs.
Yeah, avoid like the fucking
Avoid
plague.
feardotcom.com.
Which used to be an actual domain name, and I guess it's not. You just checked it before
Yeah,
we
I just
started
checked it.
recording,
Apparently,
Eugene.
now it is a London escort service that you can call. So whoever decided to buy it, they must have gotten a great price.
I'm sure they probably paid like 50 whole cents for that domain name.
Oh, yeah. I bet they got paid to take it. They had to get it off their hands.
Pulse was our next movie. I'll let Matisse take this one.
And to clarify, we are talking about the original Japanese version of this film released in 2001, directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. No relation to Akira Kurosawa. Yeah, we're not talking about the 2006 American remake.
Thank God, too.
Yeah, that's a bad one. I'll just start right off and say that I think this movie is really, really great. I've seen it a couple of times now, and I like it more every time I see it. It's essentially two separate narratives that overlap at the end. One is a group of friends who work at this like plant shop. One of their friends commits suicide due to some spooky supernatural phenomenon that they end up discovering over time. And the other narrative is this what was he, an economics student, college student, Kawashima, and he decides to give the internet a try. So he installs it on his computer, because remember having to install the internet by disk, guys? I do. He installs the internet on his computer, and the first thing he sees is a site asking if he would like to meet a ghost. And then he just sees these very creepy images of people just wandering aimlessly around their houses, and one guy who has just a bag over his head, and he gets freaked out and like turns off his computer and unplugs it, but it keeps coming back on and keeps showing him these images. So he develops a sort of romantic relationship with a professor who teaches computer sciences or something. Harue is her name, I believe. And so they start to investigate this weird site that seems to make people go into unmanageable depression after they've seen it, and then eventually They either commit suicide or they just disappear. Yeah, what did you guys think about this movie? Because I've seen it before, and I want to get your guys' impressions before we go into detail a little bit more.
I thought it was good. It was a very slow burn, very cerebral movie. You know, it plays everything very subtly. Kurosawa does that really well. He did Cure, which is another movie that's excellent. I would definitely recommend that one as well. You know, very, very creepy, but no jump scares.
Yeah, there's not a single jump scare in this entire
very visceral
movie.
in its horror. You know, it's a very philosophical movie.
Yeah, I think this movie is much more indicative of the time that it came out than fear.com is, and it's hard to believe that this movie actually came out a year before fear.com, because every goddamn fucking messy stupid thing about that movie is done extremely well in this movie. And it's basically making a commentary that the internet brings us closer together, but at the same time isolates us, where you have these relationships with people that you meet online, but you never meet in real life, and so you're ending up just alone in your house.
Can you explain why the ghosts want to like invade reality? Because that was really confusing to me.
I think they make one point, it's just that it's sort of the idea that it's been crowded, that they're starting to seep into the human world.
This is one of those things where they never they sort of leave it ambiguous, open to interpretation. We get the one scene where one of the other students explains to Kawashima his theory on why there are these ghosts appearing, and it's that the afterlife is full, so they're starting to seep into our world using the internet as like a medium through which to cross over. When they see the face of one of these ghosts, they essentially lose all their will to live and either just disappear, turn to dust, or kill themselves.
That part kind of confused me.
I think it's intentionally vague. I think that Kurosawa is leaving a lot of that open to interpretation, which is fine for me. I didn't feel like I really needed too much of an explanation. I was pretty content to just buy into it that these ghosts are seeping into reality. And then we also get the idea that just like life is extremely lonely and isolatory, that death is the same. Death is, I think, as one of the ghosts says towards the end, eternal loneliness. And so are they seeping into our reality because they're still trying to make connections, that they're so desperate to not be alone anymore that they're turning the living into more ghosts? It's an extremely nihilistic movie.
It's a lot of dread to it. You know?
Yeah, and I love that too, because that's really represented in the aesthetic too, the way it's shot and the way it's lit. It's very gray,
but shot well at the same time. Not in the way that like fear.com is.
No. Like it's intentional, and I think it's really well shot. I thought the cinematography is really gorgeous,
and they do use color at key times. You should talk about the red room.
Yeah, so and this is something that's never really explained either. For some reason, sealing off a room with red tape keeps the ghosts contained within. So we keep seeing these people taping up the seals of windows and doors and stuff with the red tape. And anytime somebody breaks the seal and goes into that room, they have an encounter with one of the ghosts. Can we talk about like how fucking creepy these ghosts are?
Yeah, they're very well executed.
Extremely well executed. Like I mentioned before, there's not one single jump scare in this entire movie, and whenever we see the ghosts, like the shots are extremely long and they just move so slowly and get closer and closer to you, and you really have time to linger on that. And I think it's very, very fucking creepy.
Yeah. Well, they start off as like ashy stains on walls and on floors.
Yeah, whenever anybody kills themselves or whatever, they leave behind like this like black ashy shadow on the wall or the floor or something like that. That's the first sign of the ghost. There's so much like subtlety in this movie that is what I think makes it really effective. Everything, like all the horror totally comes from the atmosphere. And this movie is like a fucking clinic in building creepy atmosphere, I think. And the really slow pace it takes and the duration of the shots and the stillness. There's not a whole lot of like fast cutting. Everything takes its time and you really just have time to sit with it and like let it sort of seep into you. And I think that's why it's so effective. It's hard to not see this movie and at the end of it just sort of be left with this like really heavy, like sort of existential dread a little bit that I think takes some time to wear off.
What did you guys think of the CGI in the last 10 minutes?
It was not great. I wouldn't say it was as bad as in fear.com. It didn't take me out of it nearly as much. And also it was really it was quick. They didn't linger with it too much. Like there wasn't much more than just like some cars being on fire and like a plane crashing.
Yeah, I thought the plane crash explosion was a little unnecessary.
Yeah. Partway through this movie, it becomes sort of like a post-apocalypse, like a post-apocalyptic
the ghosts
kind of movie.
Like in mass seeping
into
the real world.
People just start disappearing, like it's spreading like a virus, and everybody's just gone at a certain point, and we just have a couple of our main characters left who are just sort of like left to exist alone, which is like the theme of the whole fucking movie is loneliness. Let's talk about the sound design in this movie.
Oh man, we had the surround sound going.
Yeah.
And they used those back channels
super duper well. Like there's one really creepy scene about halfway through the movie where one of the characters goes into a room and just sees the black stain on the wall, and then all of a sudden the sound cuts out completely and you just hear somebody whispering "help me" over and over again, in Japanese of course. The whispering was mixed only into the back channels, and it came from right over my shoulder when I was sitting there watching that. I was extremely freaked out, to be perfectly honest. And they do a lot of stuff like that in the movie. Like they really know when to like cut the sound out and you really use silence to their advantage. And the music was also fucking awesome.
Yeah, the music was incredible.
Well, Eugene, we haven't heard much from you on the subject of this movie. Give us some of your thoughts.
Well, I've been trying to gather my thoughts on it. I think, for me, I really enjoyed this movie, and I think it's the only movie that I've really seen that plays around with the idea of the internet in a way that doesn't feel cheap or gimmicky or generic, that it is trying to make a point on society and the impact technology has on it. I mean, that this came out at a time when social media really wasn't big. You had chat rooms and stuff, sure.
Yeah, you had AIM, AOL. That was about it.
Right. That now in this world, we know that the internet can be used for more and that there is a connectivity behind it all, but there is the isolation of not being involved in another person's life physically, that
right. Well,
you only exist.
You can even, look at it from the context of Facebook, like we've been talking about with a lot of these movies. Like, you can have a shitload of Facebook friends, but how many of them do you actually like hang out with in real life? I know that I don't hang out with all my fucking Facebook friends. Like, I hang out with a very small group, some of that due to distance. But so I think this movie is, in a way, it has a lot of foresight. You are able to connect with people, but at the same time you can end up being extremely isolated just because you're making all of your connections online.
And it's certainly a depressing thing, the way this movie has an outlook on it all, that by going into this digital world, by escaping from the physical one, that in a way we become ghosts through that as well, that we lose the humanity that made us what we were. That, I mean, the people you see in those chat rooms, that they are as good as ghosts, whether they are actually spirits we're seeing or they're just people, isolated, lonely people just stuck in their own rooms away from the rest of the world. It's nice nice to see a movie that came out so long ago and was still covering something so young and can be so prophetic.
I think out of all the movies we've watched and talked about, this movie says way more about the internet and the culture of the internet than any of the others.
Oh yes, because
it's the oldest one, which is significant to note.
Yeah.
Because they show the significance of the internet to people, and in those other movies like Friend Request, Unfriended, they show how they use it, but they don't really ever go into detail about what that means compared to people that don't, and I think this is a movie that tries to cover that topic and has a lot to say.
It's aged incredibly well.
Yeah.
Yes, it has. It does not feel dated. The only thing that feels dated about it is like some of the brief uses of CG at the end.
Unlike feardotcom, which
Right.
you can feel the date behind it, you can tell how misguided they were in their understanding.
It feels like things about this movie still ring really true. Another thing we can briefly talk about is they sort of use, they have a metaphor within the movie where one of the computer science grad students or something has created this computer program where it's just these little dots on the screen like moving around, and if they actually touch each other they both die, but if they get too far apart then they're drawn closer together.
Yeah, I thought that was a really cool metaphor.
I thought that was too. It's not the most subtle, but it didn't even really bother me that it was kind of like in your face. Yeah, let's just jump in and rate this movie. We've been talking about it for a little while. I'll start this time. I'm gonna give this a solid 4 out of 5. I think this is a really, really good movie, and if you don't mind a slow burn horror film that has some stuff to say, then this is a movie for you. What do you guys think?
This is, I think, one of those few movies where I'm left still thinking about the concept that a lot of horror films, I mean, they're things that you tackle with your everyday life, like grief or racism or anything of that sort. But this is certainly one, while dealing with the topic of death, really gets you thinking, and especially with the digital world we live in now, it's something to really ruminate on. And
it lingers.
It's one of those where you begin to feel the depressing parts of the film more so with every moment you think about it, considering the isolation that we all feel. And for me, I think I'm gonna have to give it a 5 out of 5.
Wow. 5 out of 5. Yeah, all right, that's high praise.
I think this is one of the few horror movies that has a lot to say and I think keeps having something to say because of the world we live in. So
sure,
I recommend that highly.
I would probably give this 4 pods out of 5. I definitely agree that a lot of the philosophical elements and the sense of dread and tone are brilliant in this movie. Some of the best stuff I've seen in any horror movie ever. I think there's a slight lack of narrative clarity at points, which is intentional, but is a blessing and a curse in a way. I think there's some narrative elements that could be expanded on a little bit, and the use of CG kind of dated it a little bit in a bad way for me. But those are only minor gripes, and the rest of the movie was pretty incredible in my opinion. So definitely check it out. Worth the look.
All right, so that gives Pulse an average rating of 4.3 pods. So I think that's a good recommendation from all of us.
So you lost last week's game, Matisse. So Eugene gave you Megan is Missing to watch. What is Megan is Missing?
Yeah, because we haven't seen it. So
I'm gonna try to keep this brief. I have a lot to say about this movie, but I'm just gonna kind of rush through it. So this came out in 2011. It's written and directed by Michael Goy, who very bizarrely enough is the head of the American Society of Cinematographers, and he's been like one of the primary cinematographers on like all 7 seasons of American Horror Story. So, and I think he's a great cinematographer, but the cinematography in this movie is fucking hot garbage, and also he clearly cannot write and direct.
So wait, did you like it?
I fucking hated this movie. I fucking hated the shit out of this movie. It was just so goddamn exploitative in such a bad way, but I'll get into that. So it's based on a true story of two girls who were kidnapped by an internet predator. And so this is supposed to be sort of like a found footage retelling of that, but
Was that something that actually did happen? The girls went missing, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it is based on a true story. It's just such a boring, sloppy piece of shit. Like there's zero tension in this movie until the very end, and trust me, I'll get into the end. But everything up until that feels like something that when you're in like middle school, they would show you at either an assembly or in class to try to convince you to not talk to strangers on the World Wide Web. It's all done from, webcams and one girl's camcorder and then the phone cameras that they have, but it takes place in 2007, so everybody's using a razor.
No.
Guys remember razors?
Oh, fuck yeah.
But so we're supposed to believe that these are from the phone cameras, but I don't know about y'all, but do y'all remember how fucking bad those cameras were on those flip phones? And they don't look like that in this movie. Like it's obvious that they just shot it with like a regular film camera. But so it's about two friends, Megan and Amy, both 14 years old. Amy is like the unpopular one who has been best friends with Megan since she was a little girl. Megan is the super popular one who has a shitload of friends, but obviously is troubled.
There's a reason why they call it Megan is missing and not Amy is missing.
Right. Well, they both go missing, but Megan goes missing first because she meets some dude online that's like referred to her by one of her friends.
Yeah, that's the one thing I want to know. I want to know what their take is on the internet and...
Well, I mean, obviously, it's just like To Catch a Predator. Like, if you have teenagers, don't let them talk to weird dudes online.
They all use weird chat rooms.
Yeah, basically. And man, this is yet another one that feels like it was written by somebody who doesn't understand teenagers, because there's lots of like really just weird jilted dialogue. I wrote some of my favorites down. Megan's making fun of Amy and she says virgins don't know how to wear makeup.
Oh.
And then because Megan is like this super sexually promiscuous character while Amy is like the opposite, like never had sex or anything, prudish, but these are fucking 14-year-old girls, dude.
Yeah.
These are 14-year-old girls. And at one point Megan's like, people will stop making fun of you once you lose your virginity. Just fuck some guy already and get it over with. That's a direct quote.
Was this written by Michael Goy?
It was.
Geez.
Yeah, written and directed.
And edited, too, right?
And edited, but not cinematography by.
Oh, man.
Even though he's a cinematographer.
He was trying to play to his weaknesses.
And this is another one of those things where like all the characters are supposed to be like 13 or 14, but they come across more as like people in their 20s, except for Amy. She's the only one who's like convincingly like seems to be a child. And at the beginning we have this party scene where like just a bunch of 13 and 14-year-olds are like partying and drinking and doing drugs in an obviously abandoned house with public domain metal music playing in the background, and just the host is just this super sleazy guy. Like he's charging a $10 cover for people to get in, and if girls don't have it, they have to like suck his dick to get in. And I feel the need to reiterate that these are children. These are children. And like, I understand that like, it's the age of puberty, you know, and like, there's a lot of sexual discovery going on, but most of this movie is about like kids banging each other.
Yeah.
And
is it like a Skittles party where they have like a bunch of different
no,
pills?
It's not. And then at another point, Megan and Amy are talking to each other like over webcams, and Megan goes on this seriously almost a 10-minute story about the first time she gave a blowjob when she was 10 years old to a 17-year-old at camp, and like
geez.
really going into detail. And Amy's just like, ha ha ha, that's so funny. Was his dick big? Like these are fucking kids. Fucking,
Oh man.
fucking stop it. I was sorry. This movie exasperated me. Oh my god, I
Do
feel
you think
so.
the director dude is like some sort of creepy uncle?
You know, I couldn't help but get that impression. Yeah, but it's like all the dialogue's bad, the acting is bad, it's shot super boring. There's way too much like sexuality for like these little kids. Like we find out midway through that the reason Megan is so promiscuous is because her stepdad started like raping her at age 9. And
Did who was the director again?
Michael Goy.
Do you think Michael Goy like worked with Corey Feldman or Bryan Singer at any point?
That's a great question.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And so, yeah, like midway through the movie, Megan starts talking to this dude online, and those sequences are really boring because it's all from the perspective of her webcam, just her looking into it and talking, and you can hear his voice, and it's all just like really weird shit. Like she's like, oh, I saw your picture, you look kind of like Matt Damon, and he's like, oh, well, I bet Matt Damon can't skateboard as good as I can.
No way.
No, I'm fucking dead serious.
That's incredible.
And then so
shit.
they arrange to meet up, and then Megan disappears because obviously he's a child predator posing as a teenager online. This is very To Catch a Predator-esque. And then so the movie switches to Amy's perspective, and she's like trying to find Megan, but for some reason all of Megan's friends blame Amy for her disappearance, and I could not ever figure out why that is. There's one part where she's like out looking for her, and Megan's friends like accost her and start screaming and crying at her about how it's her fault that Megan is gone. It's like, why?
Because she's not getting raped by 17-year-old boys.
Yeah.
This movie sounds...
And there's like
I'm glad I chose it.
And then there's like these bad like news segments about like the search for her, and then at some point Amy herself goes missing.
How does she get? Does she like talk to anyone on the internet, or does she just get kidnapped?
Yeah, because the dude hits her up, and at first tries to play it off as like, oh yeah, Megan just never showed up for our date, but then he starts like threatening her and being like, you're fat, nobody's, even though she's not fat at all, like, you're fat, nobody's ever gonna fuck you because you're too fat. And it's like, this is a fucking 13-year-old girl. That he's like, if you keep talking to the police, then I'm gonna like kill your family or whatever.
Jeez.
And then so he kidnaps her at some point, and they also do this really terrible like TV reenactment of Megan being kidnapped based on like security footage. It's like, I don't know why they even felt it necessary to put that in the movie, because we already saw the security footage of her being kidnapped. They didn't need to do the reenactment as well. Yeah, that's besides the point. The last thing is, I gotta talk about the last 20 minutes of this movie, because that's when it changes tone entirely, and everything that's like bad and boring about it just takes a hard right turn. The last 20 minutes is supposedly, as they say, the unedited final 20 minutes of Amy's video camera that has been like found, because she was walking around recording herself trying to find Megan. This last part was so gross and so exploitative and just so absolutely repulsive for no reason other than to be exploitative. In this last 20 minutes, we first see Amy being kept in like a dungeon basement style thing, and forced to eat from a dog bowl without using her hands while she cries and begs for her teddy bear.
What the fuck?
Yeah. And then after that is a very lengthy rape scene scene where he rapes her that just goes on for way too long. And I know I've reiterated it more than once, but this is a child, and there's like 10 minutes of him like raping her.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And then after that, he puts her into like one of those big blue like waste disposal barrels. And the last thing we see is probably another 10 minutes of him digging a hole in the woods while we hear her crying and begging for her life from inside this barrel. And then he throws the barrel in, and we hear her scream, slowly covered up as he puts dirt on top of the barrel, and then walks away. And then that's the end of it. And then as the credits roll, we see like an old video of like Megan and Amy being friends. And there's just no reason to show any of that.
And it sounds like Michael Goy has some personal issues,
like
man.
this is no.
I'm all for separating art from artists, but
like this is just
when you specifically write child rape into your movie.
Yeah.
Well, I think the big question I have is, does anything work in the movie?
No.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Not even the scary message that you meet creeps on the internet.
I mean, I guess so, but we all know that already. You know, this
So
movie,
it's not done
This movie,
in a good
this
way.
movie came out in 2011. Like we've all been aware of To Catch a Predator since like the early to mid 2000s. Like we already know. Like as kids, I don't know about you guys in school, but they always made us go to assemblies and stuff about not talking to creeps on the internet. Like when we were
Stranger
growing up.
danger.
Stranger danger, shit like that. Like it's trying to give a message that we already are well aware of. I feel like it does that last 20 minutes to try to like hammer the point home, but it's like we know horrible shit happens to people and to kids and stuff. It's like why do we need to see that? It feels like it's supposed to like trying to be shocking, and it is shocking, and it's fucking gross, but it doesn't do anything other than to simply disgust. It's like the first hour and 10 minutes of this movie is boring, after school specially, bad acting, bad writing, and then the last 20 minutes is just gross exploitation. And I'm gonna give this movie, if I could give it 0, I would, but otherwise I'm gonna give it the same as fear.com, fucking half a pod. Fuck this movie. I have no desire to ever see this movie again, ever.
All right. Well, I hope it did teach you a lesson, even if the movie didn't. Don't fuck with me. I will.
Don't lose the games.
Yeah, right.
I just kept hoping that Chris Hansen would show up and save the day at some point. I'm Chris Hansen.
Oh boy. Well, I'm glad it was an experience for you getting
All
to
right,
watch this
let's
movie.
jump into the awards for the week.
All right.
Most entertaining movie of the bunch. What do you guys think? My vote, personally, as bad as the movie was, I kind of gotta go with Friend Request.
Really? Okay.
It was the most fun to heckle.
No, that is true. That is definitely true. It was, I mean, even more so than Unfriended. There was so much more to just talk shit about and trash.
But unless you're watching it with some friends, like otherwise it's not entertaining at all. So I'm gonna go with Pulse.
Well, I'm gonna have to say Unfriended. I think just out of all the others, that provided a good enough pace to be entertaining, just to see all the characters die. Certainly for all of its issues, it understood what it was well enough to keep it contained.
Friend Request was pretty fun.
So
too.
pretty even split. So I guess we could say not fear.com.
Yeah,
The answer for that
definitely
one.
not Fear.
Oh no, that was the worst. That was the worst.
How about scariest? I think this will be a pretty easy one.
I think Pulse.
Yeah,
Pulse.
Yeah, Pulse is the only truly scary one.
Hands down.
Really.
Hands down.
Best scene. This is a tough one, man.
I'm also again gonna say Pulse. I'm gonna say the scene at the end where fucking I've already forgotten his name again. Kawashima.
Kawashima. Yeah.
When Kawashima finally meets one of these ghosts face to face, I thought that scene was very creepy. Fuck, it's those goddamn birds again.
Right on cue.
Right on cue. It's like every day around 5 o'clock. But yeah, I'm gonna say the scene where Kawashima meets the ghost at the end of Pulse.
Eugene?
Well, I'm actually gonna go for more of entertaining, because I didn't find any of the movies. I mean, Pulse is a really good horror movie, but maybe not in terms of like scares or any individual scenes. So I'm just gonna have to say feardotcom's final 10-minute when Stephen Ray is getting attacked by the ghost, because that's just such a visual eyesore, and it's so ridiculous that I was just sort of left in awe.
That it's the best scene out of all the movies we watched.
Well, I think, again, if I'm talking just about what I found to be the most entertaining, I think I'd have to say that. I think with Pulse,
All right.
I'm not sure if there were any scenes as a whole that really I found very gripping, but in total, I thought the movie was good. But fear.com, that final scene was the one that really just, it gave me a reaction, so I think I'm gonna have to say that.
All right.
If there's any scene to watch in fear.com, it's that scene.
It's a tough one, man. I'm gonna have to go the Five-Finger Game in Unfriended. That whole sequence was very entertaining just to see how awful each one of them are. Okay,
right.
so best use of the internet. I think that's also...
Friend request?
I think that's a consensus.
Pulse?
Yeah, Pulse.
I think even with the fact that in the early 2000s and so what they do in the movie with the internet is very dated, but still has more to say than any of these other movies combined.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing, because Unfriended does a really good job at that, but it's on more of an esoteric level.
Yeah.
And then finally, best overall film.
I think we're probably all in agreement that it's Pulse.
Pulse.
Okay.
Yeah.
I literally said Pulse for every single one of these. I love that movie.
I mean,
it's good.
in comparison, it's a masterpiece.
All right. Yeah, so that should bring us to the end of our awards for this one. Ben, do you want to explain the rules of this week's game?
Oh, boy.
All right. I'm going to put myself in the place of a non-creepy Hollywood executive and give you guys the task of pitching me an internet-based horror movie, right? So I have 3 different colored cards in front of both of you. We have green cards. They each have a website of some sort written on them. The yellow cards have an actor and actress that need to be featured in the movie. And then we have 3 stacks of orange cards. One's labeled 1, 2, and 3. And the numbers are the difficulty of how hard they are to integrate. But they all have some sort of gimmick or obstruction that you have to add to it. Each of you take 1 green card, 1 yellow card, and pick any 3 of the orange cards. The orange cards will be bonus points, so there is incentive to take bigger, like 3 cards or 2 cards. They will be more difficult to integrate, but they will be bonus points if you use them well.
Gonna take one from the middle.
Yeah, you can take any combination of 1, 2, and 3.
All right, I've taken 1 of each.
Okay. So I'm gonna give you guys 5 minutes to think about what this horror movie is going to be about, and then each of you will have 5 minutes to pitch me this idea, and I will rate it out of 10. And then if you integrate the concepts, I will give bonus points for those.
What criteria are your ratings based on? Are you looking for the funniest, the best sounding movie that you would actually want to see, or what?
Sure, it's going to be a combination of most entertaining pitch that I could most see as a movie, and best use of all of the cards.
Okay. All right, when does our time start?
Okay, so I will set a timer for 5 minutes and we'll come back.
Ooh, okay. All right.
All right. We begin now.
And we're back. So I gave both of them about 8 minutes to formulate a pitch.
Took us a little longer than we anticipated.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is tough. I mean, we're trying to make a good movie here, so.
It's tricky. Hollywood is a tough field. Okay, so since Matisse lost the last game, I'm going to flip a coin, and Matisse can call it. If he gets it, he can choose if he wants to go first or second. If he loses, Eugene gets that choice.
All right.
So, heads or tails?
Heads.
That was the worst flip of all time. It's also heads. So, do you want to go first or second?
I'm going to go second. I'm going to let Eugene go first.
All right, okay.
All right, so I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock, Eugene. And begin.
Okay, Mr. Producer, I'm going to give you the newest hot franchise to hit theaters in the third quarter of 2018. And it is called Bored to Death, like a message board. A message board moderator played by Kevin James, named Anthony Message, suspects that his wife's killer has begun to stalk his board, leaving cryptic clues that might cause him to capture his wife's murderer. Our revolutionary film does not show a computer once, not once. Instead, the people that he is communicating with on the message board appear in his room physically as if they were there actually talking to him. And it's going to be Adam Sandler, who plays his best friend on the board that understands him the most. And then Rob Schneider is going to play the demonic presence that begins to leave these cryptic messages. And this is a board he created to get over the grief of his wife. And so the people that he meets on there are also equally grieving. And as his killer begins to make a bigger presence on the board, the people that he connects with also begin to disappear or begin to act weird, as if someone is targeting them as well. He begins to lose all of his friends to this murderer, and it starts to drive him crazy. Rob Schneider hangs on his back at every turn, even when he's not at his desk. And soon enough, he goes on the hunt to try and track him down. And it brings him to an abandoned steel mill. And within this mill, he finds a door that is blocked off from the rest of it. It looks much nicer, and he opens it. And as he walks inside, there is a glow from a computer screen. And as he gets closer, he realizes that he was the one leaving those messages, and that he was the one who murdered his wife, and that he created this split personality to try and get away from the grief and awful, terrible things that he did. And then he is face to face with Rob Schneider at the end, and then they do a thing where they put their hands together and then it's just Kevin James doing this, putting both of his hands together to show that he's formed and finally understood his vicious serial killer side. And then he sits down at the computer and begins a new board for all the grieving people that lost their family members in the original message board. And so then he can go back to these grieving men and start his killing once more.
So it's cyclical.
Yes, it's very cyclical. And it is the start of a new horror franchise. So
that was pretty good. Can you tell us what cards you got?
I got Never Shows a Computer, which that was a tough one to pick up. I got Message Boards. I got Kevin James as the actor. Start of a new horror franchise, and Serial Killer. So,
all right.
Yeah, that was a toughie for me to do.
I'm going to have to give it a solid 6 out of 10.
All right.
I thought it was pretty solid. I thought you used all of your cards pretty well. The movie sounds pretty bad, not gonna lie. It sounds all right. It sounds like a hot mess, but a hot mess I would probably end up seeing.
Fantastic.
Because I'd be forced to on the show against my will. And you took three cards.
I took two 3-point cards and one point.
So that's 7 points. I did have to knock off a point. I was going to give you a 7 out of 10, but you did feature a computer. It was, you didn't show him using it necessarily, but it was still there, so I had to knock a point off. All right. But overall, I'll say a 6 out of 10. So 6 plus 7, that's 13 total.
It's a 3-pointer, so is it?
I'll give you points because you utilized the idea for the most part with them being physically in the room. I think you could have expanded on that a little bit, but 13 points to Eugene. Yes. Let me restart the clock whenever you're ready, Matisse.
All right. So I'm going to pitch you the next hot horror movie of the Halloween season. It's got thrills, it's got chills, and it's called Shock Mail. And Shock Mail stars Adrian Brody as a computer sciences professor who starts receiving emails from dead historical figures.
Ooh.
This takes place entirely from his computer, Unfriended style. And we only know it's Adrian Brody because we hear his voice. He's thinking out loud throughout the entire movie. It's very freeform. So he starts receiving emails from dead historical figures. Seems innocent enough so far, you know. He's just talking with people like, oh, you know, Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, the classics, maybe even Hitler. We don't know. We'll see. You have to go to the movie to find out. But then he starts getting emails from dead serial killers. We've got all the classics: John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, Ed Gein, and all of a sudden, his friends and family start showing up dead, each killed by the modus operandi of one of the serial killers who's been emailing Adrian Brody. The police suspect Adrian Brody, but they don't have enough evidence to put him away. So this goes on for a while, and then we find out the twist. Adrian Brody is schizophrenic, and he's been emailing himself from accounts that he's been setting up. And he has indeed been killing his own friends and family this entire time. Every single dead historical figure that he's been getting an email from is just a different personality. This fall, when you've got mail, things go off the rail.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
That's pretty fucking good right there, damn.
oh man. Okay. So, tell me what your cards were.
Okay, so the first one I got was Hotmail for the website.
Sure.
So that's the platform he's emailing on. Adrian Brody for my actor, obviously. And then my three other ones where I had to have a twist ending. It had to all be from the computer, and it had to have a rhyming tagline.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to say that was really pretty good. That was really good.
Yeah, not even after
That was a great use of a rhyme for the tagline. I really appreciated that.
That was the hardest part.
Yeah, no, that was a difficult one. Very franchisable. You got all these historical figures and stuff.
We'll
yeah,
know
I'm
because
gonna
they're all Adrian Brody.
gonna have to give that an 8 out of 10. And you had what, 6 points for the cards?
Yeah, I
So
had
you-
one of
that,
each.
That puts you at 14. Just one above.
Cha-ching.
I guess you get to assign the movie. So it has to be Halloween related, but it can be any of the Halloween movies.
I'm gonna say you gotta watch Halloween 3, which is what season
Season of the Witch.
Season of the Witch. Okay, yeah, you're gonna have to talk about Halloween 3 next time.
And I've actually heard okay things about Halloween 3. You might like it. Maybe. You never know.
I've never
Yeah,
seen
sure, we'll
Halloween
see.
3. All I know is that it's the one film of the franchise
That's not like
that has
Michael
nothing
Myers.
has nothing to do with Michael Myers. So
Well,
it's
honestly,
the black sheep.
after making you watch Megan is Missing, I'm getting a better deal out of this whole thing. So
Probably.
I
Getting
will be
off
happy
easy.
with it.
So that takes us to the end of our show. We will be actually releasing an episode next week as well. Or is it the week after? We're
it
doing
might be 2 weeks.
It's not a full 2 weeks from when this episode will be released, because we will be releasing an episode on Halloween Day. And we'll be breaking from our format a little bit to be talking about John Carpenter's classic Halloween and the Rob Zombie remake. That will be the theme of next episode.
Spooktober special.
Spooktober special. So be expecting that on Halloween.
Yeah, be ready to pause Stranger Things for about 2 hours to listen to us rant on about these two okay movies.
And then you can go back to watching Stranger Things, because that's what we'll all be doing too.
Oh yes, yeah, no, I'm sure we'll be all checking it out. I still haven't seen all of season 1, so at least I got a little bit of time
caught
left.
up. You got like less than 2 weeks.
I mean, It certainly wasn't. It wasn't grabbing me as much as other people, but I understand that it's supposed to be pretty good, so I'm gonna give it another shot.
Yeah,
You
worth
definitely
it.
should. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, we talked about, trying to get onto some other platforms, and we're excited to announce that we are not only on SoundCloud now, but also Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher,
Apple Podcast.
I already said that one.
Oh, TuneIn,
We're on Apple Podcast. We're
Google Play.
App
Stitcher.
Store, Stitcher.
SoundCloud.
We're on the Apple
Libsyn.
Podcast Store.
We're on the Apple Podcast Store.
We're on SoundCloud now
We're
too.
online.
We're also on Google Play.
We're on the internet.
Ooh, yes. So be careful.
Yeah.
So at the moment, you can find us just about anywhere you listen to podcasts except Spotify.
Coming soon.
Coming soon to Spotify. If you like the show, be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and a brief review. That'll really help us pick up some steam and attract some more fans. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at PodPeoplePod for both of those. And we're also on Letterboxd as well. Just search for Pod People Podcast on Letterboxd, where we
Haven't really set it up much, but we'll be linking to the episodes and
At least
opening up a
logging.
place for discussion.
Opening
Yes.
up a place for discussion, logging the films we watch for the show with our ratings. That's where you can find our ratings.
Yes, and be sure to leave any comment that you may have, because we are always looking for feedback, and we would love it if we could just hear what you guys have to think.
Yeah,
about
we'd
this show.
love to get some engagement with the horror community. So
Yeah,
hit us up.
unless you got nothing good to say, then you can fuck off and stop listening.
Even if you have something bad to say, I'd still want to hear it.
I don't want to hear it. You're being a meanie, so don't talk to me.
I want you to berate me on social media, please.
No rude boys allowed.
Only rude boys allowed.
Well, okay. If you have any complaints or concerns, you can contact Mr. Van Awesome on Twitter.
Yeah, at me. Tell me I'm scum.
And I'm Mr. Sheets on Twitter, at Mr. Sheets with a Z.
And I still don't have an official Twitter, but if you want to listen to haikus for the modern age, you can check out Strictly Haiku on Twitter. So,
And we
feel free to check it
also
out.
we also want to give a shout out to our own Ben Sheets, who is the composer behind our entrance music, which
Damn
is
right.
great. Check him out on SoundCloud, Bandcamp, Spotify. Eaten by Nostalgia. Drop that plug.
You can't see it, but I'm bowing right now.
The crazy thing is
It's a
he's not
seated
even
bow.
bowing. He just said it. He knows this is a visual medium. He doesn't need to do anything.
All right, I
lazy
think
fuck.
that about wraps everything up. I'm Matisse Van Rossum,
I'm Ben Sheets.
And I'm Eugene Lundeen.
and we'll be back to spook you next time.
Yeah, thank you for listening. Bye!
Bye!
Woo!
Woo!